On behalf of the Trenton Museum Society, we would like to thank you for being here. On Friday night, there were like 300 people here for Mel and Jan's show. And I said then that this is a man, when he told me he had 30,000 students, he's definitely a man that needs no introduction. And so I'm going to just let Mel begin. It's going to be a walk-around tour.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
And can they raise their hands if they have questions?
Oh, sure, you can.
All right. So Mel,
because other people are talking, so
yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Can everybody come in here, please?
All right. I'm gonna give it to you, Mel.
Okay.
Here. All right.
I figure I'll start in this room because this has some of my latest paintings in it. In this room, I'm 84 years old. I gotta tell you. And I have, it's really weird when all of a sudden you realize you're as old as your grandfather. You know? And I remember how doddering he was. And I have another show also going on in the city of Trenton now at Trenton Social, which is all my graffiti paintings. And I hope you would come there. By the way, the food is fantastic. The guy who runs Trenton Social makes steak like there's no tomorrow. It's the best steak you could get. And it's not a lot of money. He even undercharges you. So, but I'm mentioning the graffiti paintings because I have done a whole series of paintings of, well, first of all, I painted my family. That's in this room. You'll see the paintings here. That's my granddaughter. Oh, I think is a genius because the drawing. I have 5 grandchildren. 4 of them are boys. They're not so extraordinary. I have only 1 girl, and she's fantastic. She's my son's daughter, and my son, by the way, is a professional tattoo artist, which I personally am very proud of because. You know, he does what he really wants to do, that he likes. He went to, I'm digressing, I know. But he went into advertising and he hated it. He couldn't understand why people. And then he got a tattoo and he wanted to become a tattoo artist. So that's that. And he supports, but my daughter and my granddaughter did that drawing when she was 8 years old, which she made, she's part of my artist series. I love my grandsons too, by the way. They like baseball. I think I'm going to start with this painting because this is actually one of my most recent paintings that I started. And I happen to like complexity very much. This man happens to be a photographer. I've always made jokes about photography, but I have painted more photographers than I think anybody else has. And my painting of the photographer Lou Draper, some of you might remember, is now in the Whitney Museum because I did a painting, because, well, I think because he used to collect a lot of stuff and it's in his room. But this one is very complex, and I've gotten more complex. This guy is the photographer. He was here on opening night. That's me doing the painting, and because I wanted to show that I don't paint from photographs. I mean, he can have a camera, but I don't have a camera. And by the way, that's something to be proud of, really, in a certain way. Some of my best students paint from photographs. I have a student, one of my oldest students is a woman named Linda Bacchese, who always paints from photographs, and she's a knockout artist. I'm actually in a show with her in Massachusetts at this moment at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, where I have my show of artist paintings. But what I did in this painting, this can explain really some aspect of my method. He is the cousin, actually, of the guy who runs my gallery. I mean, everybody has a gallery, or what they do, sort of. I don't know if they do that much for you, but I have a gallery in New York that's been representing me since the early 1980s. And that's him, that's George, that's his cousin. And so I wanted to paint Charlie, because I think Charlie is wild looking. I love the way he looks. He's got this sort of insane intensity to him. This was the painting in my show at the time of a guy named Gregory who works at the gallery. Then these here, these things here are images of photographs that Charlie took. I never heard of Blondie, by the way. I never knew who she was. It's a good thing I have children, because they keep you in touch with the stuff. She says, "Oh, Dad, that's Blondie," and so she's Blondie. She comes actually from New Jersey, and he lives in New Jersey. This is part of my artist series in New Jersey. And then behind these paintings, these photographs, I then decided to put in a copy of painting that I did at the gallery when I had a show there in 2005. So it's like 3 layers. It was extremely difficult to finish. I used, by the way, my friend Dan Aubrey, who's right over here, is one of my main critiquers. And because Dan has an eye, he's not a painter, he's not an artist. He's got an eye that is just fantastic, so he really, can see things. And this, of course, indicates that I'm starting to use brilliant color in the painting, and I made the floor green, with the red dots on it and stuff like that. I'm starting to use abstract color. I studied with all abstract painters. I did not study with realists. The one realist I did study was Neil Welliver, but he was an abstract painter at the time that he was my teacher, and he was trying to move into realism. And so he's the one that convinced me to go to Yale, and I studied with Joseph Albers. You know who he is? Does anybody here know who Joseph Albers is? Yeah, he's from the Bauhaus. He's a little bit like Adolf Hitler, but his wife was Jewish, but he was a tough guy. And so Welliver, I must say, he's my favorite teacher. He defended me when I was there. He constantly defended me against Albers, and because I don't think you can be a painter if you don't paint what you want to paint. You can't paint what your teachers want you to paint. I'm not them. I'm not Joseph Albers. I wasn't born in Germany. I didn't go to the Bauhaus. I don't know why. And he kept saying that painting is color. I don't think painting is color. You use color in painting, but it's not color. Painting is what you want. And I love painting people. And I've got to tell you this, though. I do not like prettifying anything. I don't like, in fact, I can't stand pretty painting, though I love Renoir. I don't like doing it. I like painting people that look like human beings. And I think people are beautiful no matter how old they are. You don't have to, everyone doesn't have to be 25 all the time, We can't be, like Michelle Pfeiffer and Brad Pitt, you have to be, yeah. So I like people that look like this, and so I must say he's not here today, and he, I know he might be insulted if I said that, but these were his photographs. I also, by the way, I should say this: I use a very limited palette. When I first started doing, it took me a long time to be able to move into realism. I would have been thrown out of Yale for painting this. Albers would have just, I'd been ridiculed and just thrown out. I would have been made to feel very uncomfortable. Everybody was painting dots there at the time, in fact, dots of color. And Albers even told one person who tried to break away from it by painting humorous paintings, and he said, "No, that's not you, that's you." The dots, was like so stupid. It's, you can't be, And I also went to Cooper Union. How many people here have ever heard of Cooper Union? which was the only school I could have gone to because my parents didn't want me to be an artist, and so that was free. You know, it was a scholarship school, and they were dominated by the abstract expressionists, who were entirely different than Al, but they believed in instinct and flinging paint all over the place. Okay, let's go to this painting. My daughter is here.
Oh, yeah.
And she's going to be embarrassed now. I have two extraordinary children. And my daughter even said this. I think I had children because I would have more models. And now I have grandchildren. They can all pose for me because I love painting people. This is my daughter. And this is my son-in-law, who has now become a historian. He's a computer expert. This was in an apartment that they had. This is before my latest style, really. This was done with, I forgot how many colors. I don't think I had yet been using 4 colors. In 1990, I ended up making my palette just using 4 colors and mixing them all. But I wanted to do a painting that would capture, you know, what I thought was their relationship. The house was as big as this area. They lived in a very small place. And I think this is very nicely hung between the door, the doorway. Now this painting is a more recent painting. How many people know who Nicole is? She worked in the post office here. She was my post office lady. And let me tell you, she befriended everybody. So, you know, and I unfortunately have a very bad habit of saying, I want to do a painting of you. You know, you got to pose with me. And in order to do a painting in the post office, I had to get permission from the President of the United States. You know, they give you a whole schmagegi thing. You have to go find somebody who would allow you to come in with an ease, because I don't paint from photographs. You know, it's just a thing with me. I paint from life. So I wanted to paint Nicole, and I gave her a copy of this painting. In a sense, I had a G-clay print made of it. This is Nicole and her husband. She wore her wedding dress. The garden behind her is in my house, not her house, because I wanted to give this the feeling of a garden. You know, like you were in a garden. The flowers in the front come from the front of my house. They were real flowers that were in the garden in front of the house. And these flowers back here are in the back of the house. And this mirror up here at the top with the black, that was the final thing which I eventually just made up for the composition, because I wanted this composition here to work. I have done a couple of, and I think these paintings are together. By the way, this I did not choose this show. In other words, Joan Perks and Carol Hill curated this show, and I must tell you, they really picked some of the best paintings I'd never looked at, you know, for a long time. So this was very hard to solve, and so it ended up being solved when I put the triangles of black up at the top of the painting. But the paintings are done with the painting of Tom Malloy, which is inside, was done with 4 colors. The painting I did of Dallas was done, and her son's was done with 4 colors. But then Margaret O'Reilly, who was one of my advisors, she said, Mel, why don't you use black? And at first I didn't want to use black because my ego liked the idea of saying, I could tell other artists, this is only done with 4 colors, you know. And then they say, no, that can't be, you know, and all that. And by the way, I should tell you, one of my poor students who picked up on my idea went to Brooklyn College and ended up studying with an artist named Leonard Anderson. You know him, and who's a tyrant, by the way. He's a tyrant. and he wants everyone to paint like him. And John was painting, you know, with 4 colors. He says, "What are you doing? You can't do that. You know, you got to use a lot more color." Bullshit. You know, the truth of the matter is, you know, people don't know. Now, can we look at this painting here? I just want to show this. And please go into this room and you'll see, where's Jan? Is Jan Purcell here? She was just here, right in front of me. Because Jan Purcell has beautiful paintings like this one of flowers. I could never paint a flower. I would be bored out of my crop, you know, after 20 minutes of trying to do that. I must have a figure in a painting. This is one of my neighbors, and he's got an electric car, you know, which is sort of phenomenal in a way. It hardly, it doesn't move too fast, you know, and so you can only go, you can use it for small trips. So I wanted to paint him with his electric car, and also he proved to be very helpful. He's a very nice guy. So I did Chris. Now, in this painting, I really, I'm very influenced by, I was influenced by the graffiti artist who I started painting about 2015, I think. So about 4 years ago, I started painting with graffiti artist. And I don't know if you, Trenton is known for his graffiti art. Have you ever seen graffiti work?
Yes.
It's unbelievable. This young man I painted 3 times with this painting. It's unbelievable work. I mean, first of all, they use color unbelievably, and they take, one of them takes a photograph and holds it in his hand and sprays, and then an image comes out. I find it incredible, but then I realized when I was painting them that I couldn't make a blue sky. It just wouldn't make any sense. So I ended up making a yellow sky, and then I made red skies, and then I went wild. Like in this painting, this fence was not blue. I decided it needed a strong blue to counteract this, what was going on here, and pure yellow up here and pure red. And then this is a mixed green. I don't use green. If you use 5 colors, and the 5th color being black, if you mix, if you use 4 colors, in fact, if you mix a dark blue with a red, you get something close to black, which is a dark purple. And so I did that, you know. And then I did discover, though, when Margaret said I should use black, that black, as soon as I started using it, I like it a little better. I mean, it's really black. But I'm not going against the idea of using just 4 colors. You do not have to use a lot of color. You don't have to use 60 colors. That's ridiculous. In fact, the greatest colorist of the 20th century is Matisse. And he uses, you can count the colors that he's using in his painting. You know, he'll use 5 mixtures of color sometimes in his paintings. Great painters often don't use really a lot of different color, which makes, by the way, tone very important in painting. People don't realize that. They think of Matisse as, you know, just using these bright colors. You should see how Matisse uses black. By the way, my favorite painter is Edward Manet, who has made black as a color. In fact, I have a friend who's a very good artist who told me she was told never to use white. What do you mean you don't use white? It's that you're out of your mind. And I showed her the paintings by Flemish painters in which there are large areas of pure white in the painting. And I do have another friend who told me, he said, if I used the pure white in my painting, I would slit my wrist. And I said to myself, well, George, go ahead. Yeah, let's go over here. By the way, Dallas looks younger here than she does there, you know, because they, you know, I did this painting, I think it was 1980. And these are two sons. I also, and I did this with 4 colors. I think with 4 colors.
Yeah, that was early on when you first started doing
First started with 4 colors. I like very much the idea of family, and so I like the painting to somehow or other say something about the artist, you know, the person, so that you have Dallas's painting of the zebras on the subway, her love of plants. She's got plants in her house, and she's got these 2 sons, which I know she's crazy about. So I wanted them to pose also. There are times, and I have painted people, and I think it says something about them. I told one woman who I was doing painting, but she's not here. I said, I'll copy a photograph of your children. No, she didn't want that. She wanted the fact that she gave money to the opera, so I put opera tickets in and stuff like that. That she went to China, but she didn't want her children in the painting. No, that's something. But this took me a while. One of the things that ended up solving this painting, I must tell you, is that I had to make these objects quite dark so that they hit the floor as a dark on light. I changed these things. Now also, how many people know Judy Brodsky? Everybody knows Judy Brodsky. I did a painting of Judy and her husband, Michael Curtis. I wanted, Judy is a printmaker. She lives in Princeton. And this is her studio, basically. It's her studio. These are her prints that she has up in the back over here. Her husband is a writer, and he has written a great deal on Israel. He always writes a book a day, which is why this book here exists. This is a photograph, really, that Judy used in a photographic thing of herself playing the piano. His son had made a thing which was about this big, not this big, with all his father's books in it. So I used that. Simply, I took advantage of that and I copied it and made it much bigger than it actually was, because I wanted the writing to stand out. One thing I've learned in painting, and this, by the way, you have to understand, I mean, it takes a lot of experience. The background does not take away from the figure. It's ridiculous. The background makes the figure. This thing being almost black and white throws him forward. I always paint the person first, because I have to pay them. And then after that I pay them just for posing. And then I wanted to show that Judy lives in really an extremely nice house in Princeton. And so I painted this room from the 2nd floor, looking down. So this is part of a diptych. Okay, oh, by the way, this is another thing I want to talk about. I studied with all abstract painters, and for the type of work I do, for the way I approach painting, I must say that my education at Cooper Union was the best. At Cooper Union, when I went to Cooper Union, I had a teacher named Morris Cantor, who loved white, and he gave me a feeling for the use of pure whites in painting, and then from using pure whites, I ended up using pure blacks. So in this painting, you would see an awful lot of pure white. It doesn't exist in realism, you know. So in a certain sense, my paintings stretch both ways. They're both realistic, and at the same time, they have certain abstract elements in them. The only thing is that the hardest thing to do in painting is the creation of space, which you don't understand. I mean, you have to feel that you can walk into the painting and that everything is where it is in position with other things. And that takes a while, really, I think, to come to terms with that and to figure out. I mean, you know, otherwise, I always make fun of photography. I made not my daughter's a photographer, but I have to be careful what I say. So. Let's go and look at these paintings. Oh, I want to talk about this. I just spoke to Isaac's daughter, who's in this painting. How many people here have ever heard of Isaac Whitkin? Isaac Whitkin is a great sculptor. He's also was a student, he's from Australia originally, and he actually advised Stuart Johnson with, you know, grounds for sculpture? Mm-hmm. He advised Stuart Johnson, he was his main advisor when he laid that area out. And by the way, I don't put down actually Stuart Johnson's work, but you got to see this place. Thousands of people come there, thousands of people. It's from all over the world. They come to Hamilton Township. It's unbelievable. Now, the thing about it was that I had done a painting up on Cape Cod. I go to Cape Cod every year, but I did a small painting for the Cape Cod Museum of Art for their fundraiser. And somebody named Whitkin bought the painting. It turned out to be Nadine, this young woman over here. And so I said, I've always wanted to paint your father. But then I got the idea, well, I can't paint the father, I'll paint the daughter. And so I got her daughter, she loves her father very much. I got her this pose in front of Isaac's, has about 6 or 7 sculptures in ground for sculpture. This is called Garden State. And I find it an amazing piece of sort of biomorphic shapes and stuff. He uses color in his sculpture. And then I decided that because it's a sculpture, you would have to see it in the round, in a sense. So I moved around it, you know, to paint it. This was done with 4 colors when I painted it. And Nadine posed for me there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is the 3 different greens, because it's 3 different times, like in the grass?
No, I just ended up making them different greens. I thought it'd be better. You know.
Right.
But they're a mixture of the same blue and yellow. I mean, what you do is you just take the blue, it's usually a cobalt blue, with the yellow, enhance the yellow medium, and you mix it together. Yes?
For the other picture over there, you said that you feel like you want the person to be able to step into the picture and feel that they're in the room. Is that why your perspective is different?
My perspective is different because of this. When I paint, nobody paints sitting in one spot and looking there. You know, we don't paint like Raphael. You know, like the School of Athens, where you could see, you can walk in and have one bunch of things. You turn there, you turn there, you turn all over. I'm going to show you a painting inside, in which I took things from behind me. You know, you look all over the place. You look up, and your perspective actually changes. That's why Cezanne, in his way, you know, distorted perspective tremendously. You know, so anyway, you know what? When you paint, one thing you have to do, you don't trust what you did. I was told, actually, by a friend of mine, in fact, who I thought was a good friend. He said, "Oh, Mel, you can't distort perspective if you're painting realistically." Why not? Who the hell made up that rule? You know, nobody. You know, and so I can distort it, whatever. It's my painting. I can do whatever I'm goddamn pleased with it. I think it works together. So anyway, I have a tendency to like fooling around with perspective. I just really like it. I'm not exactly, you know, classicist. Now, I got to talk about this painting. How many people here know the building called TerraCycle? Yeah, TerraCycle. It's in Trenton. This young man, this guy's a dynamo. He's, by the way, he's one of the worst models I ever had because he didn't sit still. He says, "Oh yeah, I'll pose." Then he's on the phone all the time, you know, calling people, getting phone calls. But he gave permission to the Trenton graffiti artist to use his walls. You know, the attitude towards graffiti has changed. It used to be, you know, and I know people who still think it. This is not art. This is, you know, people are simply defaming, you know, buildings and stuff like that. And that's why the graffiti artists often have fake names. You know, Jonathan over there, his name is Lang, you know, because you know, where are they going to find Lang? You know, and so it's all that, but he allows them. But then I went and signed it, the TerraCycle, and it's a recycling place. This guy has an office made up of bottles. I mean, come on. Where are you going to find something like that? So I figured, my God, that's incredible. And the rug is made up of like pieces of thrown out rugs, garbage, you know, that he was putting aside. I don't want to put in things which were personal also. This is his wife and this is his son over here. And he's here. These were photographs that were on the wall there. But it was the background that really got me. But I needed a person in it. And I wanted to paint him as bad a model as he was. I mean, I still wanted to paint him to get into that pose. And I like things like garbage cans. You know, people say, you know, why are you doing that? You know.
No. I want to make just one comment.
What?
You don't want at TerraCycle in August, we're going to have the Leon Rainbow puts together that Jersey Jam Fresh Jam, a graffiti festival, a hip hop. It is. I encourage people to get out and see it. It is.
If you don't know Leon Rainbow, there were several really major graffiti artists associated with Trenton. One is Lang, and I have 3 paintings with him in it. One is Leon Rainbow, who's now thinner than when I painted him. And then Will Castro, who doesn't live here anymore, but he moved to Vermont. You might know him. And then the 4th one is Dino Nochenzi, who did a huge graffiti image of me, which I was shocked when I saw it. And Dean paints from a photograph. By the way, they were all my students. They all took my classes. You never know what happens, you know. Wait, now let's look at this painting. I'm wondering if she even knows that she's got a painting. How many people here know Marge Michio? I've ever heard of the Artifacts Gallery. Yeah, Marge. She just recently closed it because I I mean, Trenton has some problems, and all of a sudden that became a problematic area, so she had to close her place. This is her husband, Chuck, and that's her mother and father. And I wanted to do a painting of them in this, she's a very gutsy young woman, and she's also, by the way, a very good painter. So I wanted to paint her in this, and this used to be a very important place for Trenton because it was the one place where you could buy Trentoniana, you know, stuff with silver. I love this city. I love this city. I won't move from Trenton, you know? I just love living in Trenton. And I think Trenton made me a good artist, really. Moving New York is awful because you are so inundated with influence. It's incredible. You constantly become friends with the artists who don't paint like you. You ask them to come to your house, you know, and then you become, you know, all upset or whatever, you know, with them. There's nothing to do in Trenton but paint. So I ended up really being so glad, and I love teaching. I love teaching almost as much as I love painting. I love working with my students. By the way, I hated the administration of my school. I mean, after a while, I would get chair people who were out of, you know, totally unqualified to run the place. But I like all this clutter that they had there, and I like clutter, and I like painting lots of things and stuff like that. Okay, can we come in here now? People here know who Tom Lloyd was. Know Tom Lloyd. Tom Lloyd was known as the Dean of Trenton Painters. He lived on Garfield Avenue. There's a room here which is named after him, and Jan's paintings are in that room. Jan Bristol's paintings are in the Tom Lloyd room. Actually, I painted Tom because my friend Drew Draper said, why don't you paint Tom? So he was one of the first artist paintings that I did in his studio, and you know, I wanted him to tilt his head, and he knew everything about history. He was like amazing, but he was old. I mean, he was older than me when I painted him. You know, old people tend to fall asleep. So I would say to him every time I would go there, you know, and I had to paint him, I'd say, why don't we talk about today? You know, we find some subject to talk about, let's say, horses in New Jersey, and then you just had to ask him, and then he'd go talk. He would talk straight through. He wouldn't care what you said. You know, so he would impose me. I loved, of course, all the clutter in the studio. This is one of my favorite paintings, and I think it looks best in this room here that it's ever looked since I painted it. This is a pure white, which I use, you know, a great deal of in my paintings. And so, and the thing I wanted was, and I had to, in order to concentrate on Tom, I had to create this white light around him, you know. But I really, I think I told this to somebody here. He had an open studio. He used to allow people to just walk in. And actually, one time when I was there, somebody did walk in, and she robbed him. You know, he wasn't upset. But, you know, she took stuff over.
Where was that located?
On Garfield Avenue.
Garfield?
On Garfield Avenue. But I really like, and that's his watercolor. You know, he's a great watercolorist. And the thing I like about his watercolors are they always have a type of feeling to them. A lot of people in the watercolor society, or whatever they call that thing, they do faceless paintings. I mean, they all look alike, you know. And his don't. His always look, you always can tell it's on the wall. Now let's look at this painting. This is also part of my art series. How many people here know Joe Gershak? Does anybody know Joe Gershak? Oh yeah. Good. He called me up and he said, Mel, I want to do a painting of you and you do a painting of me. I hate posing, by the way. I hate it. So, because he made me sit still, and you know, and these are two of the paintings he did, I then gave him a pose that was very difficult to do. And I didn't feel bad about doing it because he made me sit still. This is his wife, this is his daughter, who is constantly moving, and this is his son, who's a guitar player. And this is in his studio. And he used to be on the board of Ellarslie, so this is one of the reasons why this guy. But I love this pose because he would stand with the handkerchief or whatever it is, the piece of paper, while he was painting, and he had a stand. And it takes me 3 hours to do a painting of a person, which is why almost everybody else is sitting. Now this perspective is a little wild. Where's Dan? Where is Dan Aubrey? Oh. This is to show that I get a good likeness. That's thick and high, and I forgot who this young woman is. That woman is not there. I wanted to do a painting of US 1, of the newspaper. I did a painting of the Star Ledger, of their office, because I know Dan Bishop, and the newspaper business is not in such good shape now. You know, and they closed, they sold the building. Does anybody know, familiar with Newark? The Star Ledger is on Star Ledger Plaza, and that building was sold to somebody who's not using it as a God knows what. But one of the things about this painting is that this and this were actually behind me. They were not in front of me, and I put them in afterwards. And why can't you do that in realism? Why must you paint what you see just directly in front of you? It's ridiculous. You know, and it's instinct, and you have to trust your instinct. That's one of the things that painters have to do, because a lot of people who go to art school, as soon as they leave art school, they get all, you know, they get upset because they don't have a teacher to bring their work to and say, do this, do that. You know, I'm not saying you don't need criticism, you do need it, but if you just trust your instinct, it's amazing. It's different, you know, just trust it, and it'll lead you well. You know, it's different than it's a different type of intelligence. But if I have had students who told me if I was taught, I would be a great painter. What do you mean you'd be a great painter if you were taught? You would just be taught a couple of rules and stuff that you could either use or not use. You know, it's not true. So I really like this painting. I forgot if Eileen paired with yellow, but I wanted it to be yellow. I remember, so it was a focal point. This is, by the way, one of the best art newspapers now that's still in existence in the state. Okay, can we look at these paintings? This is This is part of my artist series. This happens to be a husband and wife, and they both think somewhat differently. They were students of Milton Resnick. Has anybody here ever heard of Milton Resnick? Yeah, and they run his estate actually. They live in the Mill Hill district, and they have lots of animals. And so there are animals in this painting. But Jeff, this is Jeff Dorfman. He's also a classical pianist. By the way, he's a terrific pianist. I mean, I have a recording that he did. So I faked it. His piano was in another room, and I put it in the studio. And I had to get rid of some shelves on the right. This painting took me a long time to do, and this is when I started using brilliant color. He does not, no artist in their right mind would put yellow on the wall, you know, to paint on it, but I thought it was worthwhile in this painting. This painting was easier to do. I like things like this. You see this stuff that's going on here? I find that just gorgeous. And also all the mess on the floor. And luckily this cat, yeah, it's a cat. This cat stood here for a little while, so I put her in because it was perfect for the composition. Okay, let's go to the museum. How many people here have ever heard of David Ambrose? Oh, you know David Ambrose. You know his
I
face.
saw this piece, I think, at Ryder. He was in a show at Ryder. Yeah.
That's right, this was in
Yeah.
Ryder. I really, he's not here. He can be a pain in the ass, by the way. He's very difficult to, to deal with. But he had a show, a big show at the State Museum. And I was doing paintings at the State Museum, so I told him I really wanted to paint him with his paintings, because I really like his paintings very much. This is one of his paintings, and he uses lace, his grandmother's lace actually, as a device in his paintings. So he gave me his grandma. I never gave it back to him. He gave me his grandmother's lace, and so I decided to get rid of the wall and put the lace in there. Instead, the floor I made pure white. But and I think he's terrific looking. He's got a gruffness about his quality. Now this is another diptych. These are two of my neighbors who are partners. I mean, they live together and they're wonderful people. Peter is a gardener, and Eric did a movie on me that was on television, that's been on television, and will be on again on the 31st, called Mel Leipzig, Everything is Paintable. And it's put on TV all the time. Yeah, it's going to be.
What's the date it's going to be on?
The 31st, I think.
31st.
It'll be, or the 30th, the end of the month, it will be on again. So I wanted to capture the fact that Peter does all this gardening in front of his house. And in this painting, though, the cello in that painting was a cello that Thomas Eakins painted.
Oh my!
And Thomas Eakins has a famous painting called The Cellist. And because Eric is in the TV business, he was able to get the guy to loan. I think the guy thought that he was going to buy the cello. So maybe he owned the cello, but he didn't, But recently, that painting, I love Eakins. I mean, my favorite painters are in a sense diverse. I love Manet. Manet is, I think, my favorite painter, but I love Degas also, and I love Matisse. I'm crazy about Matisse, and I love Thomas Eakins. And they almost have nothing in common except that Eakins paints real-looking people. And so, and then Eric over here, he got the cello and he plays beautifully, besides being in the movie business. The woman over there is his aunt, who inspired him to work, to become a cellist. So, and this is a diptych. There are two of them in the show, these two. And that's it. Questions? Yeah.
I'd like to know about the painting at the top of the stairs here, that regal.
Oh, the painting at the top of the stairs. I was commissioned to do that painting by Dr. Schnurr. That's Bernard Schnurr. And he was an anesthesiologist. And he came to me and he said, I want you to, he was leaving Trenton, and he wanted me to paint the room. And I said, I don't just want to paint rooms, I'd have to paint your whole family in the room. So that's his whole family. Then when he died, none of his children, he has 3 children, I think. He had 2 sons, 3 sons, he had 4 children and a daughter. None of them had a house that was big enough for that painting. So they wanted to donate it to a museum. So I'm really glad they ended up donating it to Ellarslie, because I'm a Trenton painter and I have no work in this museum, and I figured that would be great if that was in it. So that's why it's there. But that was done with maybe 8 colors. It wasn't done exactly with 4. Are there any other questions? Anybody else have? Well, yes, you're going.
I noticed that in a lot of your paintings, there's like paintings within paintings. Can you talk a bit about that? About
paintings in the paintings.
yeah, like there's multiple.
Well,
paintings.
I like doing that because, first of all, when I paint artists, they have paintings, they do art. So I had to copy those paintings. And he had his paintings wrapped up with something, and I thought that was really good. That's her painting over there, and then he has those paintings there. And when I paint myself, I often have paintings all around, so I like doing that, paintings. The background tells you something about the person. It's not just the look of the person. It's also the background, which is part of the narrative, I guess you would say, of who the individual is. Like when I painted Lank, I put him in a painting that he did of his 2 children, a graffiti painting of his 2 children, and they're in the painting, and then they're on the walls right behind him. And I like things like that, And by the way, there are a lot of people who think you're not supposed to do that. The background's supposed to be very simple so the figure stands out. Who made up that bullshit? It just doesn't always go. It goes for some people, but it didn't go for me. That's all. I mean,